Understanding your artist identity and being able to communicate that with your audience means super fans. It means lifelong fans. But how do you go about doing that? I know. No one wants to be defined. No one wants to be put into a category, especially musicians. That's why you're a musician, because you're a creator. You are a creative, and you don't want to be put into a box. You want to be unique. You want to create music that people have never heard before. How can you possibly define that? However, defining your artist identity, your values, your story is highly important when wanting to engage an audience. And this means getting your music heard by more people, getting your message out to more people. And surely that's what any artist wants. Your artist identity is split into your values, your story, your style. And once you've nailed all of this, your audience will be growing. Your audience will be singing your lyrics back to you. You'll be having hundreds of millions of streams, hundreds of millions of ticket sales, merch sales, whatever you want. Because as soon as someone can relate to something, as soon as someone has something to grip onto, that's when they go from a casual listener, maybe even a fan, to a lifelong fan. I explain this theory quite often to artists, that you need to have an identity. You need to have something more to you than just amazing sounding music. And people struggle to understand it because of course you're the creator. You want to just sell yourself on the creative. However, there is more to it than that. And I always like to compare it to Apple. Yes, Apple, who sell iPhones, Macs. It's a similar story. Why do you buy an iPhone over any other phone on the market? They don't sell it to you just by saying, buy our new iPhone. They sell it to you because they're innovative. They have something that's so simple, yet aesthetically pleasing. They're constantly trying to outdo themselves. And the reason for this is because of Steve Jobs' values. He said,
marketing's about values. This is a very complicated world. It's a very noisy world. And we're not going to get a chance to get people to remember much about us. No company is. And so we have to be really clear on what we want them to know about us.
And this is exactly the same for artists. This music industry is oversaturated with music. So you need to get out there to your audience. Show what your values are. Show what makes you stand out from the crowd. Because just stating, my music is good and you should listen, won't get listeners. Think like Steve Jobs. Think, what do I want my audience to know about me? What do I want them to grip onto? What do I want them to be able to discuss? Because that's the thing that will mean your fan base grows and grows and becomes a community. And that's what a fan base is. That's what any strong fan base is, a community. So where do you start? How do you get to know what your story, your values, your style actually is? Many of you will probably know what all of these things are quite naturally. However, you're probably struggling to get it out to people, trying to communicate it to your fans. And that's the key part. So in today's video, I'm going to help with all of those things. I'm going to explain how you can find what your story is, your values, your style, and then how you can communicate that to your audience and your target audience to ensure you're reaching as many people as possible. The story. This is the main term for what you're all about. It's the reason you create music. I'm pretty sure all of you will know what this is without even thinking about it. It'll be the reason you first picked up that guitar. It'll be the reason you first wanted to join a band. It'll be the reason you bought your first CD. The beautiful thing about creating this identity is you don't actually have to create it. It's already existing there for you. It's all of the things that make you you. So this could be something as simple as where you were born, who raised you, who taught you about music, things that have defined your music career so far, the things that you're passionate about, what drives you every single day. All of these things are part of your story. And people fall in love with the story, not always just the creative. For example, this platform, YouTube, there are hundreds of millions of YouTubers out there, but you follow a select few. And the reason you do this is because you know their story, the people that you're engaging with, you feel like you personally know. And that's the same as the music industry. Your favorite artist, yes, you love their music, but you feel like you have something more there. There's something that you can engage with. You know their story. If you follow this channel at all, you'll know we often speak about Lewis Capaldi. The reason for this is because he used social media content to grow his audience rapidly. He went to #1 in the UK, and just recently he went to #1 in the US. And a UK artist moving over to the US and going to #1 that quickly is incredible. It hasn't happened in years. And he did this because of his artist identity. His story is very simple, very real, very authentic. authentic. And it's basically the fact that he lives at home with his parents, he loves making music, and it just so happens that people like it. He's so real. He takes the mick out of himself. He takes the mick about the fact that he's overweight, the fact that he's not the best looking guy. Your story could be pretty similar. Perhaps someone taught you how to play a certain instrument and it inspired you. And from that point onwards, you want to share that talent with as many people as possible. Or perhaps you've got a really funny, interesting story, like you got a divorce and that divorce forced you to write a song and that song did amazingly well and now you're thanking your ex-husband for everything. There's a story in everything. You just probably haven't written it out and realised that that's actually a story because it's your life. Your audience want to know you and what you've been through, so they feel part of that journey as well. Your core values will be making up this whole brand statement. They're what you stand for, which is often included within your story. Your values might be that you want to push musical boundaries, or it might be more political. It can be absolutely anything that you're passionate about and you actually feel strongly about, because jumping on a bandwagon like environmental issues, Brexit, something that you feel is current because you want to get the attention, will shine through immediately. It will be so obvious if those values aren't true to you. But if they are, that's fantastic because you can engage in conversation. You can start a conversation. An artist whose values are so strong and clear from day one have been Lady Gaga. Her brand is all about celebrating difference, being different and being comfortable in standing out from the crowd. She expresses this through her songs, through her clothes, which she's most known for, her support for different causes. Her brand is tied together by these core values. And if you have values, you're going to have so much more support from your audience because it shows personality, it shows what you're all about. It creates this brand, and that's what makes you stand out in this music industry. Like I said earlier, this industry is oversaturated with music. So having those values that are shining through from the lyrics, from your social media content, from your live performance will make you different, will mean your audience have something to talk about. And as soon as you've got people talking, that's when you know that you're an artist that people are definitely going to be listening to non-stop, sharing with their friends. And that's the main aim. So now you've got these values, you've got that overall story. You need to portray that through your style. Again, style does come naturally to quite a lot of people. You'll naturally have a fashion sense. You'll naturally have certain colours that you do wear and portray through your social media. However, they make a bigger impact than you think. Your style should represent your brand. It should be fitting to those values, to that story. So going back to Lewis Capaldi, the story of him living at home, not having much money and just wanting to create music, his style fits that. He wears clothes that it looks like his mum would buy for him. But then you take Billie Eilish and it's a completely different story. Hers is a lot more thought about. So if you see her, she's constantly wearing baggy clothes, baggy hoodies, sweatpants. But she doesn't just wear it because she enjoys it. Of course she likes wearing hoodies, she says that a lot. However, she says she wears baggy clothes because she doesn't want to be sexualized. She doesn't want to be judged. She wants to be comfortable in herself and loved for the art rather than her body. And that in itself fits her overall brand. Being comfortable in herself so that when she walks into a room, she doesn't care who's looking. This is why she has such a huge fan base with the Gen Z millennials, because it's relatable to them. They're at that age where they're worried about getting judged. They're not comfortable in themselves. So having someone like her who's inspiring means that her brand is so strong. But your style doesn't just mean the clothes that you're wearing. It means the way you speak, how you write things on social media, the colours that are on your social media, your website design. And if you again look at Billie Eilish, she does look into all of these things. Everything's so carefully done. If you go to her Instagram right now, there's certain colours used. It's the blacks and the neon colours. The bio is so simple, it's so carefree. The same as her captions. She's putting across this whole persona of not giving a shit. And again, the fashion side of things is such a major focus for her. This is all part of her brand. It's not just random stuff she's throwing online. It's things she knows her audience will be able to feel like they know about her. They'll be able to engage in conversation. If you were to look at any of your favourite artists and you really analyse their style, everything's been done for a reason. They haven't just slapped on some random clothes, taken a picture and they're fine. The clothes are chosen, the background is chosen, the way they've written that caption, all of it fits the overall brand, it fits the overall story. A great example of the way that someone uses copy is the 1975. If you go to their Twitter, the way they speak is quite political. They engage in conversation about Brexit, about the general election, about the environment, and they even release songs discussing these things, like the recent release with Greta, which went viral. That hasn't just been a random topic that they've picked. They've always had those core values throughout their career, and it just so happens that right now they're trending issues. But there's no point having this story, these values, this overall style if you don't know how to portray that to your audience. Communicating all of those things to your audience is the key part. You'll probably naturally be putting all of these things into the music. Like I said earlier, the 1975 and the Greta song, that came naturally to them. It portrayed their values. And you're probably doing the same. A lot of LGBT artists will be writing songs about that. A lot of artists that have anxiety, depression, they're writing songs about that. So perhaps pull apart your songs if you're really struggling to tell that story, because it might be there right in front of you. But besides the music, you need to portray that artist identity through your social media, through the content that you're putting out, through your website, through your live performance, through your artwork. Everything as a package needs to be branded. So to really get your brand out there to people, you need to sit down and think, how does my story work with the colours? How does it work with the copy? How does it work with even the way I speak to my audience? The easiest way to start is your social media, because you can pre-plan it all. You think before you upload, so you can plan the clothes that you're wearing, the colours in the picture, the background. Everything's planned ahead, so you can really think about how your brand is portrayed through that image. However, where it gets a little bit more difficult is when you're looking at live performance. If you're an emerging artist that hasn't played many gigs yet, I would highly suggest just focusing on perfecting that set. Naturally just being you and putting out there your brand as much as possible, but don't overthink it, because the music and the set itself needs to be good to begin with. Once you've started to perfect that and you're starting to play bigger crowds, that's when your brand can really shine through. So Fickle Friends, an indie pop band in the UK, their vibe is very summery. Their style is quite summery, it's quite upbeat and happy. So their live performance is exactly the same. They have blow up palm trees on the stage. They drink from palm tree water bottles. Simple things like that will mean that your brand is shown throughout. And playing live is where you get really personal with people. So if you're speaking to them about those core values throughout, it makes the whole event feel so much more real, so much more authentic, and builds that connection so much more. Before I end this video, I'd like to make it very, very clear that none of this is important if you're not being yourself. If your values aren't true to you, if your story is just a complete lie, if your style doesn't look natural, no one's going to engage with it. Write about what you want. Perform the music you want to perform. Be you on stage. Once you've perfected that brand, you'll have the knowledge, you'll have the creative freedom to be making music which will sell out venues, making merch which will sell out in minutes, creating content which will get hundreds of thousands of likes in seconds. Once you've got that brand, the audience is there, the attention is there. You're an artist for a reason, so embrace that identity and run with it. I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, hit that like button. And I want to know who your favourite artist is, who you think's got the best branding, so make sure to comment that below. And make sure not to comment your own artist name. Make sure to join the community by hitting that subscribe button, turning on that bell so you're notified when we upload, because we're uploading 3 times a week now. And I'll see you soon with more music marketing advice.
She looks a little like the